everyone, and welcome. We're so excited to meet with you today.
I'm Jen Foldvary. I am a college consultant with Educational Connections, and previous to my work here with EC, I served as an associate director of admission at the University of Toledo for about 8 years, and then I went over to the other side of the desk and worked as a college counselor at a small private high school in Michigan for about 15 years.
And my name is Renee Minnich. I'm also one of the college consultants at Educational Connections. Prior to joining EC, I worked in college admissions for over 30 years. I worked at a small school, a medium-sized school, and then I spent 28 years at the Rochester Institute of Technology. So that's where the majority of my career was. And I did sit on the admissions committee at RIT. So I have a lot of inside knowledge of what it's like to be in that room when they're making decisions on who to admit. So happy to share some information with you. I'm
Looks like we've
excited.
got some questions.
It is. It's exciting though, Jen, isn't it? This is our first
This
Ask Me
is
Anything that we've had. So I'm loving the turnout and it's
me
exciting to see some
too.
questions come in. Jen, I think you said you had some questions people emailed. So we have a couple in the Q&A, but do you want to get started with maybe one or two of those emailed questions first?
Yes, yes. And I actually see she ended up joining us,
Oh,
Banu, if
good.
I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She actually just put some questions in here as well. So
Okay,
we'll
good.
tackle a couple of those, and we're going to try to get to as many of your questions as we can today. We'll try to get through as many as we can, and of course, we want to try to answer as many from different people as well. So I'll tackle a couple of those questions from Banu. When should you set up college visits? So that's always an interesting question because it depends on what kind of student you are. You can visit colleges anytime. You can start visiting campus visits when you're a freshman in high school if you want. And it's always good to start early because your interests change and of course, depending on what you have going on in high school, the timeline can be a little crazy too. So I always recommend starting as early as possible. And if you do start early, make sure that you make a second visit back to those colleges a little bit later because your interest, like I said, your interest can change. The best time to actually visit is during the school year, during the week. So I know that's not convenient because you're thinking, oh, summer vacation is great. We don't have as much going on. But if you've got a school a break, a popular day to go visit is President's Day or a day that there's off of school or even spring break is a good time to visit because usually colleges are in session during those times. And so that you can actually see the climate of the campus. You can see students going to class and all the activity going on. So we always suggest that. It's really easy to set up a campus visit. All you do is you go to the college's website, and usually on the first page, you'll see something that says visit, and you can just click on that. If not, you can go to the admission page, and there's some information right there on how to set up a visit. You can do virtual tours or in-person tours. In-person tours are generally better because it's like test driving a car before you buy it. You're trying it
Mhm.
on, you're feeling it out. But if it's a little bit farther away from you and it's harder to get to, a virtual tour is fine as well.
Sure. I'm going to tackle, I think there's another great question in there from the same person about when should your student take the SAT or the ACT? I think that's a question we get often. And we will work with students from eighth grade all the way through rising seniors. So we really kind of have that ability to counsel students when to take them. I recommend that students do some test prep between their sophomore and junior year. So that's a great time to really kind of dive in, do some test prep, and then take the SAT or ACT in the fall of their junior year. Some will take it even August, September, early on. It depends. But summer is a great time to do test prep because you don't have all those competing priorities of everything else going on in your life. And of course, we have some really, really great test prep counselors at Educational Connections too. If anybody is interested in working with those, I personally recommend one-on-one test prep. I think that allows a student really to get the focus on them and what kind of support they need the most.
Absolutely. I see another question that I'd love to answer. We have so many coming in right now. I'm hoping we can get to them. What's the number one tip you would give students in regard to applications? What mistakes do you see most? What caught your attention in a good way? So there's a few things. Actually, the biggest mistake is starting late and rushing through it all. You want to be able to take your time. So starting earlier is the best way to do it. Especially with the Common App. And a lot of colleges use the Common Application, which is basically a system where you can fill out a general part of the application and then you can add your colleges and do supplements later. And this is something that we work on with our students individually. But getting a head start on that, creating your Common Application account early and starting to answer some of those general questions is always good. There is a personal essay section in the Common Application. And again, getting started on that essay is really important. The essay is one of the biggest parts of your application. It tells the admission officer who you are outside of your grades and your test scores and all the other information that's in your application. So, rushing through an essay, you're not going to get your point across. We want to be able to take some time and really be able to craft a compelling essay. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things. Is there anything else, Renee, that I'm missing?
No, but I like that you said about the essay because I agree. Every student thinks like, oh, I write essays for school. This is going to be really quick. And it's just a different type of essay. It's really more of a personal statement. And I usually tell students it's 3 to 4 meetings with me, maybe not the whole meeting, but 3 to 4 meetings to kind of work through that essay and get feedback and be self-reflective. So I think those are all really good tips.
Right.
I want to tackle a question from Moira, who I asked about an Asian American student who has a Caucasian sounding name but is adopted. How should she choose? How should she reveal her ethnicity on her application? And I will tell you, there's not a really easy answer to that question because that's a personal choice. Any student who is looking to reveal their ethnicity or reveal that they have ADHD or a learning difference, there's a lot of different things that students can choose to disclose. And those are all very personal choices. However, if you feel it's something you would like the admissions committee to know as they are reviewing your application, then you can choose to reveal that typically within an essay. That is probably the most commonplace, but you shouldn't feel pressured to include the information but if it is something you want to share, then it's absolutely something you can include.
Yep. Very good. Excuse me. A follow-up to the question that I had a little earlier. Gabriella is asking, what does early mean when starting the essay?
Good question.
Well, that's a good question. And, you can start, I usually start with my students. We usually start right about the end of junior year in the spring, because, junior year is a tough year, right? You want to just get through it. You want to get through your final exams and get yourself done with junior year. And then we take the summer and that's what I work on most with my students in the summertime is just crafting that essay. We do several different reviews and edits and things like that. So sometimes it can take several weeks before we get an essay that we really want. So usually I like to start right around June with the essay.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I do the same thing. The day the students get out of school, our next meeting in the summer, that's when we start their essay. And I like
And
them
then we
all
start
done right by the end of July. So like this is kind of my time when like it should be done by this. So I'm working on that, I think, with every rising senior I have right now. But you still have a few weeks before school starts. So if your child is a rising senior and hasn't started their essay, start now. Now's a good time to do it and kind of have
absolutely.
that goal to finish it up before they head into school. Okay, so I'm going to answer 2 questions because one's going to be pretty quick and then one's a little bit more specific, if that's okay with you, Jen. So someone asked, are campus visits really necessary? And to me, I have to answer that question. I think I have said a million times, nothing beats a campus visit. Like that is just my philosophy. I can't tell you how many times I've had students visit a campus and think they were going to absolutely love it and didn't like it at all because on paper it looked perfect and the website it looked great, but then once they got to campus and they saw the actual layout or the feel or they met the students, like it just didn't feel right to them. So I don't think you have to do every campus visit before you apply, but should you do a campus visit before you enroll? Absolutely. Can it help you narrow down your college list by doing campus visits ahead of time? Absolutely. I definitely have had students who will come back and I'll say, well, what didn't you like about it? And sometimes they're like, I'm not even sure. I just didn't feel right. And that like, it's just kind of the vibe or how you feel on campus. So that's an okay answer as well. And then I want to answer there's another question about someone has a daughter interested in engineering, specifically mechanical engineering. And this is a program that I worked really closely with when I was at RIT. So I'm understanding the struggle they're having. So the struggle that this family is having is trying to find acceptance rates specific to engineering or mechanical engineering as opposed to the college as a whole, because we know many colleges have differential admissions, and differential admissions means they have different admission standards for the majors that they have at a college. So a student may be admissible to psychology, but may not be admissible to mechanical engineering at the same school. And I will tell you, this information is very tough to find. In fact, I think Jen and I were just recently talking about, how to have this data on hand for ourselves and how to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information. I will tell you, there are some schools, I know specifically RIT has, you have to dig for it a little bit, but they do have a page where they break down every majors that they have, what the average GPA is to be admitted into that specific major, and what the average SAT or ACT scores are. So that can be really helpful. The other way to do it is, to be honest, just call the school. Just call them and ask them directly. Because if you do hearsay, this person said this, or I heard this student got in there and this was what their GPA was, you don't know the whole picture. So it's really important to have specific questions about your child's grades or SATs or ACTs and go ahead and put that out there to be answered. Don't be afraid to call an admissions office. Don't be afraid to hop on their chat. Almost all admissions offices have chats right now. So I think that's, completely fine to do as well. I am finding, because I think chat has increased more and more colleges that have chat bots answering. I like to talk to a person. Um, but
Definitely.
admissions offices always have someone answering the phone. And I will tell you, I worked in an admissions office for a long time and we got questions all over the board. So never be afraid to call and ask the question if you're wondering for that information about a specific school.
For sure. We're getting a lot of questions about SAT right now. So I'd like to
Oh,
tackle some of
sure.
that if
Okay.
you're good with that.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so she asked this question about submitting her daughter's SAT scores. And this is always a tough way to answer, a tough question to answer because it really depends on many different factors. Okay, she's talking about how her scores are just below the college's 25 percentile score. But they're also much higher than her high school's average SAT score.
Mm.
And this is what we work on a lot with our students. We really sit down and we look at the whole picture and whether we should, send the test scores or not. Um, it depends on on each college what you should do in that situation. Generally, if the SAT score is below the college's 25 percentile, we say probably not to send the score.
Mhm.
However, if your test score is better than the equivalent of your GPA, it might be a good idea to consider sending it. So it's not a general question that we can just ask. It's something we have to take all these other factors into consideration as well. The other question is about prepping for the SAT. They have a rising junior who hasn't started prepping for the SAT yet. And that's not too late. It's definitely not too late. You can definitely start prepping for the SAT. Renee mentioned earlier that we have some great test prep available right through Educational Connections, but there are also other ways that you can prep as well. Generally, we like to say, if you haven't started prepping, if you're going to be a junior and you haven't started prepping yet, now is the time to do that. And, take multiple practice tests. You really don't want to take the SAT much later than spring of your junior year because you want to allow time to retake it for a better score. So just another thing I want to mention, I know there's other questions about SAT too, but I feel like I'm taking over. So Renee, go ahead.
I wanted to add in one thing, excuse me, Jen, that you were saying about whether to submit test scores or not. And two things, I guess. One is that it is an individual decision for every school on your list. So it might be a yes for one school or a no for another, because I do get a lot of families saying, here's the test score, should we submit them? But you really do need to look at the middle 50% and the averages for each each school. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was, I worked in admissions when a lot of schools went test optional, and students were like just stressed over, should I submit them? Should I not knowing the answer to it. My answer to that question has always been, if it adds something to your application, you submit them. So if your academic transcript is a better indicator of your academic potential, rely on that. If you feel like your SATs or ACTs also show academic potential, then send those in. So sometimes when you kind of take a step back and look at it that way instead, you really have to take that transcript into consideration as well.
Right, for sure. Good point.
Yes. We do have someone who's asking about applying to schools in Canada. That is a pretty specific question. I'll kind of give you like a broad stroke of it, but you may actually want to schedule a consultation with EC or talk to some schools in Canada. Typically, schools in Canada and the US are used to having students crossing the border and coming into the schools. So they usually have a counselor that will work with international admissions, which this actually does fall under international admissions, and is a specialist in evaluating the transcripts from those particular countries. So I don't think there's really anything extra that you need to be concerned about. Just make a list of schools that you're interested in, and then I would just do a quick check on their website to see if there's anything specific that they would need for you, because those requirements might be different for every school that you look at.
Right. Another question
Oh, go
is,
ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I wanted to dive into this community college one. So
I was
we
just going
have,
to do the same thing. I feel
I,
like we're trying to rush through because we have so many questions.
I know. So someone asked if their son chooses to attend a community college after high school instead of doing a gap year to kind of reset their GPA due to having some low grades. In this particular situation, it's ninth grade, but it could be, throughout your high school. Does this really change the application responses and information, or will his high school GPA be reviewed? This is a great question. So, of course, we work with students with all different academic backgrounds, and there are students who maybe have some blips on their transcript and maybe want that opportunity to show more academic potential by going to a community college. I was a transfer counselor for a few years as well, so this is a little bit close to my heart. And absolutely, I think community college is a great option for some students if they want to show that they do have the ability. I will say this isn't a rule across the board, but many colleges will not look at the high school transcript after a student has completed 30 semester hours of college level work. So that is basically a year. So that does sometimes give the students an opportunity to hit the reset button and make sure that they're really showing their most recent work and their strongest ability to be successful in college.
For sure, for sure. I know we've been answering a lot of questions. I'm just reading all these coming in. We've been answering a lot of questions about SAT. I'd like to kind of flip it over. Another question there is about extracurricular activities and its impact on applications, and that is big. That is big. Again, we talk about the grades and the test scores, and that's everybody's always looking at those, but colleges want to see how you're spending your time outside of the classroom. Okay. Are you just going home and making TikTok videos or getting on Xbox, or are you doing something that you truly enjoy and making the most of your time? So colleges want to know, what makes you tick, right? What are your interests? So by getting involved in different, even, not just clubs at school, but also extracurricular activities like community service or even working a summer job. Summer enrichment programs are great. Doing some job shadowing or interning, somebody within an area of your interest. These are all things that look great on a college application. One thing I want to mention, though, is there's a section on the Common Application for you to expand on each of your activities. you don't want to just list, we don't want a laundry list of all the things, don't just join clubs just to have something to put on your application. We always tell students, get involved in something that you can really throw yourself into. You're going to have to describe what you've done within that club or that organization, that extracurricular. So you don't want to just say, I went in to 4 meetings a year and that was it. Like you want to talk about maybe some leadership experiences that you had within those clubs. Maybe you joined a community service club and you really threw yourself into it and you decided, hey, I think I'm going to create my own community service project within the community. Anything like that can definitely make the application, enhance your application so much. So extracurriculars are big.
I also think this is an important conversation for the parents that we have of rising ninth graders, 10th graders. This, 11th graders, this is when you really should be talking about extracurricular activities. And I don't
Right.
know about you, Jen, I think you do the same, but anytime I work with a student, I have them fill out like an activity tracker so I can see what they're involved in. And then we
Yes.
start talking about how do we round that out. So those are the conversations I'm having right now with rising ninth, 10th, and 11th graders. What will you be doing this fall?
Right.
So, and I already have a bunch of them, which they were like, "Oh, I'm glad we talked about this. Like, I'm interested in this club." And I'm like, let's hit your school website." And they were, "Oh, they have a club. Here's the contact person. How do you get involved?" So now they're going back to school armed and ready to start getting into their extracurricular activities. And if you join in eighth, ninth, or 10th grade, then you are able to rise to these leadership positions in 11th and 12th grade, which really does look great on your application.
For sure. Because I have some students right now that I'm just starting to meet with that are seniors, and they're kind of freaking out because they're like, I have nothing to put in the activities section.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
well, we can't go
Well,
back now.
let's see what
So,
we can do.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to tackle this question from Amy, and it's an interesting question. She said she feels like schools are making it increasingly difficult to be admitted as undeclared. And I 100% agree with that. My son thinks he wants business, but he's not sure. And we're getting a sense that he will miss the boat if he doesn't declare business and get into a program out of the gate. And she said, I mean, he's 17, which I totally agree. There's so many students who don't know what they want to do when they're coming out of high school. But we are seeing this massive trend towards schools eliminating their undeclared programs. And that's really challenging for some students. Some of that is being driven by schools trying to keep their graduation rates at a good level. When students come in undeclared and remain undeclared for 2 years, it is sometimes very difficult to get them to graduate on time in 4 years. So by kind of encouraging the students to pick a major early on, they're trying to help that. We're also, to be honest, finding less and less students coming out of high school undecided. Jen, I don't know how many students you have working with that came to you and said, I have no idea what I want, and they're rising
So
seniors.
many.
Yeah. So, I think that students are kind of coming into the college application process knowing more what they want to do than they have in the past. So I would encourage you to look for schools that have sort of like mini undeclared programs. So this is an example again. Sorry to go back to RIT, but I was there for so long. Like RIT has an undeclared engineering program, an undeclared business program, an undeclared science program. So that if you kind of know the avenue you want to go, you can go into that and then decide by the end of your first year which program you want to go into. So that is something that you can possibly look at. And then, if you're finding schools don't have an undeclared program at all, and he's leaning towards business, I would say apply to business and let him explore that within school. So many students change their majors within college, that there are going to be other students even who feel like they had their mind made up and then come in and either don't like it or are exposed to something different that they had not heard of before. So there is that ability to move majors within college, but the earlier you do it, the better, so that you graduate on time. I mean, that's kind of everybody's goal, especially parents, make sure that they graduate on time. So I hope that helped.
Well, and also for those of you who have students who are in, ninth, 10th grade, a good thing to do now is there's so many different things out there you can do for career exploration. You can even
Sure.
start job shadowing people. People love to talk about what they do, right? So if you've got
Mhm.
somebody in your local area, maybe your student's interested in becoming a physical therapist, call up a local physical therapist and ask, would it be all right if I came and shadowed you for the day or just even a couple of hours? asked you some questions, a lot of times it's just getting that experience to see if it's something that you might be interested in. At my old high school, we used to do a job shadowing day with our juniors, and it was a great way for students to see whether they really liked it, or many times they would show up after in my office after they did their job shadowing and said, absolutely not. I am not going to be a nurse because I couldn't handle all the blood, you know.
Right,
So
right.
I mean, it's also a really good thing to think about if you're here and you're a little bit earlier in these stages, just kind of getting out there and doing some exploring, and that might
Mm-hmm.
help.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think there are a lot of opportunities to do that. I also do some career exploration with some of the younger students I work with, and that way they
Right.
have time to. If you're a senior, that's a little bit harder, but if you're younger, we can, that's definitely something you can work on. Do you
Right.
want to why don't you take the next question, Jen?
I'll take the question about the SAT again. So
Okay.
it's funny. I laugh when I look at this question because the question is, my daughter got a 1310 on her AC or her SAT, and I want her to take it again, but she doesn't want to.
Mm.
I have two boys, one a college age, one who's a senior. I had to beg him. I had to plead with him. I'm like, please, let's take it one more time. Nobody wants to take these tests. Okay. They're not fun, you know, but I always encourage students, take it at least twice. Take it at least 2 times. The first time you're taking it, you got the jitters, you're a little nervous, you're not sure what to expect. So take the test the first time. I think her test score is amazing. It's a great score, but there's always room for improvement. So if you can encourage her to take it again, take it again. If she's a rising senior, which I'm assuming she is, there's still time to take it. She can take the September one, or I'm sorry, yeah, she can take the September one. Actually, she can also take the August one, but she might want some time to prep a little bit. So she can take it all the way up until she can take the October test as well. So I would encourage her just to try it one more time. It can't hurt. If she doesn't do as well, she just sends her better score.
Yep,
So
I agree.
definitely.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to tackle the AP. There's someone who asked if can 4s or 5 on an AP exam scores help, and if a student has a 3 score, does it hurt? The answer to this is it depends, like a lot of things. But there are colleges that will require AP scores to be sent if you've taken the exam. They want to see all of them. There are colleges that they're happy that you took an AP and they don't even ask for the scores unless you're going to enroll. You certainly obviously can include them on your Common App as well. I, in general, as a past admissions officer, like to see 4s or 5s on AP exams if it was pertinent to your major. So if you were going into engineering and you had 4s and 5s on chemistry, physics, calculus, all those types of things, it was great. A 3, though, on like on a liberal arts AP exam is typically okay as well. If it's an AP English or AP Psychology, 3s, many colleges will even accept a 3 as a credit to come in. So the question really would be more so college specific instead of a general answer to it. I will say most colleges have on their website, might be on the registrar's or the student records website, they often have a chart that will tell you each AP exam and what the score is and what it will come in for credit.
I'm looking through these questions and trying to get to some that we haven't answered. There's a
Hmm.
question down here about scholarships. There's so many scholarships out there, with varying amounts. Are these legitimate? So there are. It's overwhelming when you start thinking about scholarships. So my advice to students is the best place to look for a scholarship is through the college first. That's where you're going to get the most money. So first thing you want to do, go to the college's website. Usually you can get to it from the admission page. There's information on tuition, financial aid, scholarships. Some colleges are, they'll put it right out there. They'll let you know these are the different tiers of scholarships that we offer. You apply for admission and you're automatically considered for scholarships. So that's the best place to start. The second best place to start is within your community or even at your high school. A lot of times counselors will post local scholarships that are available in the area. So you can, and that's another, it's a little bit easier because you're not up against such a huge pool, is looking for some local scholarships or even scholarships through the high school. That's the second place. Then you can move on to these bigger national scholarship search websites. One of the ones that I used with my students a lot was called Going Merry. It's a free website that you can get on. You can create your own profile. There's a lot of them out there like this. So Renee, you may have a few other suggestions, but I liked Going Merry because you could create your own profile. You'd put in your GPA, your test scores, your major, all this information about you. And then what it does is it sifts out scholarships that would be applicable to you based on your profile. So it kind of takes out the whole search process and like makes it a little less overwhelming.
I think that's really, really good advice, Jen. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to kind of switch gears and go back to someone asked a question about the large graduating class for 2026, which is high birth rate for 2000, 2007, 2008, and how will it affect admission rates this year. I will tell you, I think colleges are more concerned with the overall declining birth rate that we have seen. They're more concerned about that. But at the same time, we have students applying to more colleges than they have in the past. So once a lot of colleges went test optional, we saw this huge boom in the application numbers. And so we have seen kind of a higher increase in that, but also some lower yield rates for colleges. So there's so many factors that are involved in these kind of decisions that colleges are making. I don't know that I can say specifically having a higher birth rate that year is going to really impact things. I think it's one piece in the very large puzzle of what affects application numbers and yield rates over the years.
Two questions just came through about the scholarship, actually three.
Okay.
Three just came in about the scholarship website I mentioned. It's actually, and I'll put it in the chat, it's goingmerry.com. But there's tons of them out there. I don't know, Renee, did you have any others that you used before?
No, I don't have anything specific that I use for. I've heard of that one and had students use it, but I don't have anything that I would specifically recommend.
Okay.
Okay, before we answer a few more questions, I do just want to share some information from about Educational Connections. If anyone is interested in working with a college counselor, Jen and I are both still accepting rising seniors and students through all the grades. We're happy to work with any students who are interested in college counseling, and we can cover a whole range of things like we've spoken about, doing extracurricular activities, looking for summer programs, advice on test prep, course selection, all the way up through and including making a balanced college list, submitting your applications, interview prep, all sorts of things. So if anyone's interested in working with a college consultant from EC, feel free to schedule a one-on-one with us to discuss that. We have some great education specialists that can kind of talk you through the process. The call only takes about 20 minutes to learn about what we have to offer and see if it's something you might be interested in. So I just wanted to mention that before we go back to the remaining questions, because I know that we have quite a few still in there, and we are going to finish up right around 1:15 and be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm happy to get this in now, and we'll kind of go back now to answering some of the questions as well. Okay, Jen, you want me to grab the next one, or you want to take one?
So I see another one about the SAT. Do most colleges take the super score of the SAT?
Oh, that's a good one.
Really, a lot of times Renee and I find ourselves saying, it depends. It depends on the school. It depends on the student. It really just depends. That's a tough question to answer because every school is different. And they will be clear on their website. If you go to their website, there will be a section that talks about testing, and they will tell you whether they're test optional, and all their testing policies. So it just depends on the individual school, whether they super score or not.
Good question. Okay, I do have someone who asked specifically about a financial aid question, and I don't know about you, Jen, and you can see the question, but I don't pretend to be a specialist in financial aid. I know the basics that I can, get someone to submit a FAFSA and kind of, point them to the right websites. But I think for specific questions about financial aid, I think it really makes sense to reach out to a financial aid counselor. You don't necessarily have to do that at every single school. I think the question that you asked about retirement income is probably the same answer at every school. So I would select one of the schools that you're considering and then go ahead and, reach out to them and ask them, even by email. They're answering questions like that all the time.
They are
Um,
great. I will tell you this, not to interrupt, but
oh, sure.
that's the best place to go is the financial aid office of any college. Those financial aid officers know so much. It is overwhelming. The financial aid process can be really overwhelming. They can take that all away for you. So don't ever hesitate to contact a college admission office about any questions with financial aid, and they're usually super helpful.
Sure. I'm going to answer another question, if that's okay, Jen, about the cost of college. And I actually just had this similar conversation with a family last night. This family saying they're a bit traumatized by the cost of colleges and have anxiety about whether they would qualify for any need-based aid. I'm going to generalize this question. Should this discourage us from applying to any school? Competitive schools, Ivy Leagues, schools that have a higher cost than some of the other schools, and getting discouraged in that way is difficult. And the conversation I had with the family last night also added in some other factors like emotions. Like you don't want to have your child fall in love with a school and then realize that you can't afford to send them there. So I'm also a parent. I have two children who are in their 20s, so I've been through the process with them as well. And this is what I have to say. I always recommend families look at the schools that they're interested in and decide if they are passionate about those schools and want to apply. It's very easy to cross a school off their list because it has a higher sticker price than other schools, but you can't really compare sticker prices. You have to compare net prices, your net cost. Like, what will it cost after you've received financial aid, scholarship, merit aid, grants, and you don't know those things. Unfortunately, you almost have to go through the process to see what that price is going to be. So you're really comparing apples to apples. So you may have a school that's more expensive, but they may also, and typically also, will give you more aid, whether it's non-payback aid, which is what kind of everybody wants, scholarship and grants, or loans, and then kind of make that determination. So if there's a school that your child does feel passionate about, I do recommend that you kind of pursue the process and go through it and make sure that you are able to collect financial aid packages from all the schools and really compare that bottom line price to each other. That's the most important way to go. And then here I am diving into financial aid, even though I said I wasn't financial aid. I also recommend that if you have a school that your child falls in love with and you get a financial aid package that you can't work with, reach out to that school. Reach out to them and explain how interested your son or daughter is or your child is and let them know it's the first choice school and talk about whether you can do an appeals process. Because if family or if colleges feel like they are going to yield that student who's already been admitted, so we know they're qualified by adjusting the package. I'm not saying they're not going to give you an extra $15,000, but if the difference for you is 2 to 3,000, it's very possible that they might be able to help you. So don't be afraid to reach out to a financial aid office and ask those questions if there's a school that your child feels passionate about.
Another thing I forgot to mention about the scholarships, colleges have a freshman, most colleges have a freshman scholarship package that they do, but there's also additional scholarships that you can look at by major in colleges as well. So you can also take that route. Those usually require a separate application, but it doesn't hurt to look at those as well, because those are some additional opportunities there.
Sure.
There was another question. My daughter's high school offers college courses. What looks better in the college application? How many AP classes have they taken, or how many college classes have they completed during high school? Okay, so this is interesting. Colleges, of course, want to see, they look at academic rigor. So they want to see you taking as many AP or dual enrollment classes or IB classes as possible. But having said that, we also want to make sure that you're getting good grades in these classes. So, dual enrollment and AP, I think they both look great on a college application. Same thing with IB, they all look great to colleges, but we also don't want to overload our students. So, don't just I had a student once that was just taking all these AP classes, but was bombing them. And it's like, this is not helping, right? So I would say if you're a student and, you're going to major in something like engineering or health, or maybe just load up on the AP or dual enrollment classes that are math or science focused. All right. There's kind of a strategy to all of this on how to, choose your courses for each school year. And this is something that we do work on individually with our students every year. We look at the course catalog from each school and we talk about, their challenges or their strengths, and we talk about what classes maybe they should challenge themselves in more and maybe we should hold back on. So again, it's a case by case basis, but definitely both dual enrollment and AP as well as IB classes all look great to a college. Anything you
Okay,
want to add to that, Renee?
no, I don't think so. We've got a couple more minutes, so I want to try to get to as many
Oh,
questions as we
definitely.
have, if that works.
Yeah.
Okay, I have someone who asked if they have a rising 12th grader who received a 2 on their AP bio exam. Is there anything they can do about that? And the answer is no, we've taken the exam and, you know, but you can, they were specifically asking if CLEP is viewed as an alternative by the admissions office. And yes, there are admissions offices will take CLEP exams as well if you feel that is an option. The other question I wanted to answer, and I thought this was a good kind of general question that I want to cover, is that, sorry if you mentioned this earlier, is there a site recommended for parents to help with the understanding what students should be doing to prepare for college admissions? I have a rising junior, so perfect time to be talking about it. He's visiting colleges, great, working on his SAT score, great. He's focused on clubs and rigorous AP schedule this coming year. What else should we be thinking about doing? So you can go right to the educational consultant's website. There is checklists for preparing for college through the 4 years. So I recommend that. I think you're doing all of the right things by looking at colleges early, considering clubs, making sure he has a regular schedule, and really just buckling down on his grades and making sure those are strong, because that junior year grades are what will be submitted to colleges as well. And it's a great way, especially if a student hasn't done as well in 9th or 10th grade, to show that you're on an upward trajectory. So you can probably find some great sites out there to find some checklists available. I know we have some available. And but I think right now this family is kind of going and doing everything in the right direction.
That's true. That's true. 1:15. I can't believe how fast that went.
Okay, you answer one more quick, and I'm going to answer one more quick.
Okay, sounds good. Let me take a look.
Oh, I
Um,
think you already answered the one that was up there about the high school courses. So I think we only have one left.
okay, what was any tips regarding determining schools of interest? I feel like the whole country is chasing the same top 20 schools. Totally.
Yes.
I would like to consider other options, but don't know where to start. It is overwhelming. There are so many colleges to consider. And believe it or not, there is a college for everybody. So, you don't necessarily need to look at these US News and World Report rankings. It doesn't really mean anything. You want to go where it is the best fit for you. There are a lot of resources out there. This is what we work on with students as well. There are a couple books that I would recommend. There's one, I have it sitting right in front of me, Colleges That Change Lives. This is a really good book. You can get it on Amazon. Um, I love this book. It's called Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be.
Mhm.
Everybody, all these, students always chase these very highly selective, prestigious colleges because they feel like if I go there, I'm set for life, right? But there are so many great colleges out there that you probably have never heard of that could be the right fit for you. So using some of these resources, meeting with uh, college consultants like us, or even talking to a counselor will help as well. Now there's just so many resources out there on the internet that you can search as well. It just depends on it depends on every student is different. It depends on what your interests are, majors, what you want as far as location. There's a lot of different factors to consider, and we really work with students and break that down for them and help them find that.
Jen, I feel the exact same way. I am always telling students, like, my goal is to block out the noise. Stop thinking about what your friends are doing or what someone you heard or this
Yes.
person or this person's opinion. The college admissions process is just as unique for every student as those students are unique. They all want something different, are looking for something different, have different strengths and weaknesses, different majors. You can't compare your friends list to your list because you are both different people. So you
Yes.
really have to kind of put yourself in a little bit of a vacuum and go on a path that feels right for you. So I think that's kind of a good way to end it, Jen. So
For
I want to
sure.
thank everyone for coming to our first Ask Me Anything. I think it went really well. I really appreciate everyone who put questions in, and I hope it was helpful. Just going to put this up again really quickly at the end here in case anyone has any or wants to have an appointment with one of our education specialists to talk about college counseling. And thank you again for sharing part of your day with us, and we hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks for joining us.